yet. No?
Yeah, it should be. What did we learn yesterday? Okay. Anyone remember what we learned yesterday? Oh, very good. So, before we start reviewing what we learned yesterday, we'll ask the same question about Sphere Sa'emer, and we'll see who remembers. The same question. If you're not sure if you counted by night, you sure didn't count by day. So let's say last night, you don't know, maybe you counted, maybe you didn't count. Today, let's say today, and let's say today you for sure didn't count, but yes, last night. Tonight, can you count the bracha?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. That's the answer. Okay, so yesterday a question was asked, what's the difference between why segula is allowed?
Yeah,
Right?
I want an answer on this one.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Does everyone know what a segula is?
Which one?
Anything. What the concept of a segula is.
Something that's work
Yeah.
from some people, and then they call it school.
Oh. So a segula, I'll just explain so everyone knows. A segula is something that if you do this, it's a segula for this and this to happen, right? There are certain mitzvahs even that the Torah promises that if you do this mitzvah, there's going to be a richas yamim, we're going to have a long life, right? Like Torah says, segula is a special thing. In English, I don't know what the best word would be to describe it, but it means that, let's say, that in the Ten Commandments, it says, you should honor your father and your mother, in order that you should have long life. So it's something that, if you do this, so it's a segula for something else to happen because of that. If you do this, you'll have it's a segula for parnasa, so to speak, right? We just had that people bake in the challah, they put the key, right? Aware of that? The shlisel challahs. Right, so there's such a custom which is brought down. So it's said that it's a segula, that if you do this, it's a segula for parnasa, for what a person is going to earn. So the question was posed yesterday based on what we learned, thank you, based on what we learned, that you're not allowed to do anything which is menachesh or something which is ma'inen, which means, as we learned yesterday, that you take a sign exactly with superstition, right? If you do this, and then this and that is going to happen, right? So a question was asked yesterday, how are segulas allowed? Why doesn't it fall under the prohibition of superstitions, right? Okay, so the answer is as follows. The answer is, what is the definition of superstition, as we learned yesterday? Anyone remember? Yeah, when the Torah prohibits superstition, what does that include? So if you remember yesterday, we learned that if this and this happens, based on that, my actions are going to change based on that, right? Oh, I was eating breakfast and the food fell out of my mouth. I'm not going to go ahead with the business deal, right? Because it's a bad sign that I'm not going to succeed in my business. Therefore, I'm not going to go ahead with the business deal, right? So what do we see? What is superstition? What is the prohibition of superstition? The prohibition is that your actions are being based off of signs that you came up with, right? I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I'm not going to go to school today because I'm not going to, right? So, okay, how does a segula work? A segula doesn't mean that I'm doing my actions based off of something that happened. It's not superstition. if I do this mitzvah, or if I do this good deed, or if I do this and that, this custom, so it's a segula, it's that itself can open a channel of brachas in my life, right? If I honor my father and mother, this opens a channel that Hashem gives the bracha, the blessing of long life, right? If I do this mitzvah, and this mitzvah is a segula for, let's say for parnasa, I do this action and this, whatever it is, a special deed that opens channels that Hashem should be able to give us brachas through for parnasa, good health, whatever it is. So that's not superstition already. Superstition means that I'm taking something as a sign, and based on this sign, I'm acting upon it, right? Or not acting upon it. I'm not going to do the business deal, or I am going to do the business deal, so on and so forth. On the other hand, when it comes to a segula, you're not doing anything. You're doing something which either it's passed down by Messiah, which from generation to generation, or it's clearly written in the Torah that this thing is a segula for whatever you need, for whatever it's advertised as. But you should just know that not everyone holds of segulas, but there's no prohibition because of the nachish connected to the segulas. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I don't know. I still feel like there's a very fine line.
Okay, what's the question? What's the...
Because it's just like, because maybe if someone buys, say, a sheitel, they're like, okay, so I bought the sheitel, so this means I'm going to get engaged soon. So then they somehow have this mind to like, okay, maybe I need to put more effort into this one person. I feel like it still changes the way they act.
Correct, but you're not making, meaning you're not doing anything. Oh, because I got a sheitel, I'm not going to go out with this person. I don't know.
Or like because I got a sheitel, say someone buys a sheitel and then the next day their shot comes like, oh, here's this profile, maybe like, oh, this is the person I have to be with. And maybe it is, but then it seemed, I don't know. So
that's different. That we learned yesterday. There's something called a simon. You take something like a simon. Simon means that, right, we learned yesterday, if somebody buys a house, they have a child, or somebody gets married, and they see that they have hatzlacha, things go well 3 times, so they take a simon that this thing is brought bracha into their life. So that we said is not a problem, right? So just because something brings bracha and you act upon it, and you pursue something, that's not superstition. That's taking something as a sign. And again, even with signs, ultimately, the best is to have full betachin in the Eibishter. So it's not a problem, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to start the next chapter, Siman Kuf Samach Zayin, chapter 167, Hilchus of the Dezara, the laws concerning idolatry. So one may ask, why do you need to learn this? The answer is very, very simple. If you go on shlichus, or if you go in your homes and you deal with people from different communities, you have to know what's allowed, what's not allowed, right? Just the other week, a few weeks ago, a certain shliach called up that he needed to give something to a certain charity, but that charity is connected with Avodah Zarah, so on and so forth. So you have to know what's allowed, what's not allowed, and especially if you're going on shlichus, or if you're building in a community, or if you're a part of a community, which there are a lot of people who are not Jewish, you'd have to know what's allowed, what's not allowed, so on and so forth. So Siman Kuf Samach Zayin, chapter 167. Hilchus of Avodah Zarah, it's page 1092 in the Lashon HaKodesh, 1093 in the English. Everyone has a sefer, or if you want to share with each other. Yeah, 1092 in the English, 1093. Hilchus Hilchus of Avodah Zarah, the laws concerning idolatry. Aleph. Halacha number 1. Avodah Zarah asura b'hana. Anything which has to do with Avodah Zarah, which is idols, so on and so forth. The halacha is it's forbidden to benefit, to derive benefit from it, right? It's asura bahana. Hana means benefit. So one is not allowed to derive any benefit from avodah zarah, from idols. So the idols itself are prohibited to derive benefit from. Tashmisha, v'naya, v'sikr ravsa. Yeah. You have the avodah zarah itself. You have the tashmisha avodah zarah things. We'll see exactly what that means. The naya, things which are to adorn, to make it look nice, and anything, any tikrevis, anything which is brought as a carbon, so to speak, as a sacrifice to avodah zarah, one is not allowed to derive any benefit from it. So much so, even if one of these things, let's say you had a cup, and the cup was used for avodah zarah, for idol worship, and it got mixed in with 1,000 cups, which are regular cups, which have nothing to do with avodah zarah. The halacha is now all of these 1,000 cups are forbidden. Yeah, you hear? Even one in 1,000. Right, so an idol itself is not allowed, right? You're not allowed to derive any benefit from it. You can't buy it, you can't sell it. We'll see if you're allowed to look at it. We'll see in a few minutes, Mr. Hashem. But so the idol itself, anything which was used for the idol, anything which is used to adorn it, to make it look nice, and anything that you brought, not you, Chaz Hashem, anything that was brought to as a sacrifice is not allowed to. One is not allowed to derive any benefit from it. So much so that even if it got mixed in with another 1,000 things which are permitted, which were not used for avodah zarah, and now you're not able to identify what's what, the halacha is the entire mixture is forbidden. Izahu tashmisha. What does it mean when we say that in English they translate vestments, things that are used for the avodah zarah? So what does that include? Hakelim shakayin maktin behem lefanav. It means the vessels which the kayin, it's not talking about the Jewish kayin, it's talking about those who actually serve the avodah zarah, the idols, the kalim that they burn or bring incense or any offerings to it. So these vessels which are used are not allowed. For example, if you have a pan and you burn incense, whatever it is, for the purpose of avodah zarah, for the idol, that is not allowed. A house which they use to serve the idol, that's also not allowed. And if you put the idol on a certain platform, so this platform is also not allowed to derive benefit from. Also, any musical instruments that are used to serve it, so to speak, all of these things are prohibited to derive any benefit from. So if they were using guitars, right, to sing their songs to it, and now they want to have a garage sale and sell these guitars, a Jewish person is not allowed to derive benefit. They cannot buy these guitars. A practical implication. I don't know how often it's going to happen, but yeah.
How would you know?
Oh, that's a very good question. So if it's clearly the house of worship is hosting a sale, then for sure it's a problem. Otherwise, you don't have to assume. If you're going just to a secondhand store, you don't have to assume that it's coming from such a place. So what does it mean? It's ornaments, things which are, used to make it look nice. If they lit any candles for this avodah zarah, if they adorned it with any clothing, or if you spread out any nice any garments in front of it to make it look nice, it's also not allowed. Also, if you plant any trees or any plants around it, so to make it nicer, these are considered for its beauty, and they are not allowed, they are forbidden to derive any benefit from. Therefore, you can't sit in their shade. Yeah. So if you planted, if a tree was planted for the purpose of Avodah Zarah, so one is not allowed to derive benefit from this tree, and the practical implication of that is you can't sit on it for the purpose, under it, sorry, for the purpose of its shade. And to crave a sacrifice or any foods, whatever it is that they bring to for this idol, are also, that's considered the sacrifices, and one is not allowed to derive any benefit. Okay, simple, right? So we'll see in a second. There are big questions that come up in some communities, and sometimes in some out-of-town communities. So in some communities, there's many questions that arise in this topic. In some communities, and the truth, it was also over here in Crown Heights, sometimes the voting is hosted by a cloister, a church. So it's big questions that arise. Are you allowed to go and vote in this building? So, so even if you're in shluchus and you're involved completely in your shluchus, but sometimes, these questions do come up. Or let's say a church is going to want to give a donation to your synagogue from their own things that they used, so on and so forth. Or if you have friends that are practicing idolatry, whatever it is, and they want to give you things. So you have to know what's an issue, what's not an issue, so on and so forth. So all of these things, that is the idol directly, or anything which was used for its service, to make it look nice, or anything which is brought as a gift, all of these things the Torah says one is not allowed to derive any benefit from. And so much so, even if it was taken and it was mixed in, even by accident, and 1,000 other things, and you can't recognize what's what, the halacha is this mixture, everything is not allowed. Okay, base. Halacha number 2. So page 1095. Avodah Zarah shall go, the idols of somebody who is not Jewish. So the idol itself, and anything which was used for the idol, and anything which was used to beautify it, so to speak, yesh lahen bittul. The halacha is that it's able to be nullified. When a non-Jew nullifies it himself, they actually do a process of nullification. It should no longer be considered an idol, a tashmish, or an object. It should no longer be used for the purpose of idolatry, or it shouldn't be used for the beauty of idolatry. The halacha is hutru. It no longer has the status of Avodah Zarah. But if it belonged to somebody Chas v'Shalom who's Jewish, for whatever reason they didn't know any better, they got caught up in that, they didn't meet the local Chabad Shliach yet, right? So that a Jew is never able to be mevatel. He can never nullify it, right? So if somebody who's not Jewish, they had any possessions of an idolatry, whatever it is, or things like that, so the halacha is they are able to nullify it. They have the ability. If they nullify that it's no longer idolatry, it's just a piece of rock, whatever it is, then the halacha is it's no longer prohibited. But if it belonged to a Jew, Chas v'Shalom, then he is not able to nullify it. Now, a practical implication is often and sometimes, it depends. It does happen many buildings that used to be one type of building were sold to a synagogue or to a Jewish school, right? But what did we just say? That we said that a building which is belonging for the purpose, which is set aside for the purpose of Avodah Zarah, is not allowed to be used. So what's the answer? How can a synagogue or how can, so it's not a simple topic. It actually involves a lot back and forth in the halachic authorities. But one of the main principles is based on this halacha. The fact that a non-Jew that had idols and idolatry and all that, they have the ability to nullify it. So once they nullify it, then there's no prohibition to derive benefit from it. So again, this is a large topic. There's many shuvas written on it. But the reality is, today there are many buildings that used to be churches, so on and so forth, and are today shuls, or today are Jewish schools. So the foundation of how it's done is based on this halacha that we just learned now. The fact that a non-Jew has the ability to nullify it, and that takes away its status as Avodah Zarah. Gimel, so halacha number 3. Any candles that are lit in front of the Avodah Zarah, the idol. If a non-Jewish person lit candles for the purpose of Avodah Zarah, and the non-Jew himself put the candles out, and he sold it to somebody who was Jewish, the halacha is mutarin. They are allowed to be used. Why is that? The kevan shekiban l'tzerich atzmei. Since, why did the non-Jewish person? Why did they extinguish it? They did it for their own purpose. So that's considered zahu bitulon. This is considered a form of nullification, right? If he put out the candles for his own purpose, if he doesn't need it anymore, whatever it is, he stopped, so to speak, the service that it was being used for. So that is already considered a form of nullification. And we call malkaim, but nevertheless, a lasis mehen neirishal mitzvah. So these candles should not be used for the purpose of a mitzvah. So you can't light your Shabbos candles with them, and you cannot light your candles for the Chanukah. It should not be used. So too, anything which was used for Avodah Zarah, so even though it was nullified, and a person is allowed to derive benefit, nevertheless, it should not be used for a mitzvah. Can anyone guess what the $1 million question is?
What kind of mitzvah?
Any mitzvah. What's the $1 million question? We just said that shuls today buy, sometimes whatever, that's what's available. There used to be places of idol worship. Why? Based on the fact that you're able to nullify, right? From this halacha comes out the exact opposite. Even if you nullified it, who cares? You're not allowed to use it for a mitzvah. So you're allowed to sell it, you're allowed to derive benefit, you're allowed to do whatever it is, but you can't use it for a mitzvah. So how can you build a shul with it?
It depends.
A.
So it's a good question.
Thank you for asking that.
It's not my question. I'm asking a question of myself. So the answer is, there's a few answers. The answer is, in short, that it's actually not so simple. That's the answer on one foot. But there are tshuvas. Rabbi Moshe has a tshuva. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was from the biggest halachic authorities here he's actually in New York. He was very close with the Rebbe. His yeshiva actually used to be such a place, such a building. And they did it. So he has a tshuva that, if I'm not mistaken, the foundation of the heter of the why it's allowed is because a building is considered that it's attached to the ground. Once something is attached to the ground, it has a halachic status as the ground itself. And just like the ground itself cannot become asur if somebody bowed down to the floor you're still allowed to derive benefit from. It's a special halacha, it's brought down the Rambam. So the same principle is with a building, that a building is connected to the ground and it has the same status as the ground, that it doesn't become forbidden. Could be I'm not remembering correctly if that's exactly what he writes, but that's the gist of it. So you'll see there's opinions here and there. Some people do it, some people don't, but many actually do it because sometimes you don't have a choice. That's the only building available. But it's a question, it's a big question. Daled, the fourth halacha. The garments that those who serve the idols that they wear when they walk into the place of idol worship. Yesh Emrim, some maintain the Noy Shalahem it's considered as something which is used to beautify the idol. V'loy Noy Shalavedazara, Ein Tzrich Bittul. Yesh Mishamatzich Bittul. So some hold that the clothing that these people wear is really for themselves, to make themselves look good. And therefore, they would not need nullification. And some maintain no, that they're wearing these special clothing for the purpose of serving the idols, and therefore, in order for them to become mutar ba'anal, for you to be able to derive benefit from it, one would need to nullify it. Okay. Hey, Surah Shesiva Erev Shemishtaachim La Asura B'loi Bittul. A form which Shesiva Erev means like this and then like that. Yeah? Everyone knows what it is.
Make sure it's not a permanent marker.
Oh,
Robert
okay, I
said he's
understand.
making a mistake.
Oh, yeah, haven't done a mistake here. There's no markers. Oh, here, there is a marker. So if you have a line, you should see the Erev and you put them together, right? So the halacha is, yeah. So the halacha is, such a sign is, if it's used for idol worship, it's asur b'loi bittul. One is not allowed to derive any benefit from it. And you should know there's big questions. There's big questions because sometimes you have Jewish people who are jewelers.
What?
Yeah, believe it or not.
What?
They're jewelers.
What is it?
Makes jewelry.
They make jewelry, they buy and sell jewelry, and this is a big question that they have. Are they allowed to deal with these products?
No.
Oh, very good.
What kind of question is that?
Yeah, so Tzura Shesiva Erev Shemishtaachim La, such a thing that people are used to Chas Hashem to worship, it's forbidden without nullification. But sometimes some people wear it as a decoration, right? Sometimes non-Jewish people, they wear it as a decoration, so that actually is not used for Avodah Zarah. It's just a decoration ultimately. And over here it says the zikarim ba'alma, just for them to remember or whatever it is. So that actually doesn't have the same same status as something which is used. So that has a different status. But again, if you're in the jewelry business, it's not a proper thing to deal with these things. But
Question.
sure.
So I know, like, I've heard of people like saying like you have to round your T's at the bottom, like when you write. Is that a real thing?
It's a custom, so it's not a must. That's a very good question. Everyone heard the question?
No.
When you write a T, right? So you can write it like this. And you do it like this on purpose to avoid that, right? To avoid, if you take this part away, it's sticking out, right? So there is such a custom. It's not a must because ultimately you're just writing. If somebody doesn't have the T, it's not. They didn't do anything wrong ultimately, but it's a proper custom. It's a proper thing to do. What happened? Okay.
Not you, it's the class.
Yeah. So Vav, halacha number 6. But it's too hard to write around the teeth. So Vav, halacha.
She writes in Hebrew anyway.
There you go. You see, you never run into the question. Yeah. So halacha Vav, halacha number 6. So also last is Shem David L'Tzeinich V'Avodah Zarah. So until now, we were discussing items. Right? Certain items, what's allowed, what's not allowed, when nullification helps, when nullification does not help. So if Chas v'Shalom, for whatever reason, the Jewish person had it, so nullification does not help. They have to destroy it. They can't have any benefit from it. If it belongs to somebody who's not Jewish, so nullification does help, but it should not be used for the purpose of a mitzvah. Now, also one is not allowed to do anything for the purpose of Avodah Zarah. Even just to make windows for the house of idol worship, one is not allowed to make them. One is not allowed to sell books which are exclusive for Avodah Zarah, for idol worship. Also, v'chein sifrei Tanakh, and we'll talk in Bishinuyim, kedei l'parkim l'achzik and manasim. Also, one may not sell any funny versions of the Tanakh, of the Chumash, the Nevi'im, Ksuvim, the prophets, so on and so forth. So all of these things are not allowed to be sold to them. Also, to sell them something which is for the purpose of their services. Also, it's not allowed. So one may think, what does this have to do with me? The answer is very, very simple. The answer is that many people have businesses. You're in a community where, let's say you are an electrician, you're a plumber, or not yourselves, family members, whatever it is, or you have a business where you sell things. And, somebody knocks on your door and, hey, can you do construction on this house of idol worship? It happens, it actually happens. Or can you provide services, can you sell this and this products for the purpose of idolatry, right? So these questions come up, and I'll tell you a secret, it even comes up into local stores over here in Crown Heights. Sometimes, they're found online, and they want to make a shipment because they have places where they have missionaries, so on and so forth, and they want to get Jewish material in order to lure people in, to say, look, we're Jewish, everything's fine, right? So these are very, very big questions. What do? What do these businesses do? It's a big question. So the answer is, one is not allowed to sell these products to such organizations, and if it happens, they should get the proper rabbinic guidance. So, Shemaz Hashem should never happen. Zayin the 7th halacha. Also, one is not allowed to look at an idol or on its ornaments. Shenemar al tifnu al lili. One is not allowed to stray after idols. One should not walk within 4 ames, which is around 6 feet, from an idol and from the home, the house of idol worship. One is not allowed to hear the music which is played for it, or to smell any smells which is done for it. Well, if one hears the music being played for the idols, you should close your ears and not listen. Also, if a smell comes, one should have in mind not to derive pleasure from the smell. So we see, how far we take it, not to disconnect from Hashem, right? Anything that has anything to do with the service, yeah?
Okay, 2 questions.
Yeah.
So when it comes to not coming in with the certain amos, is this the building itself or the property?
It's brought down the building itself.
Okay, cool. Next question. So when it comes to secular music, a lot of people say that classical music is fine, even though classical music is probably the most problematic because a lot of it is rooted in Christianity.
The tunes themselves?
Yeah, like a lot of the tunes themselves are decently Christian.
Mhm.
So why is classical music considered the most appropriate to listen to when it's probably the most problematic?
Mhm. So I actually did not know this. So ultimately, if it's not known that this tune or whatever it is for the purpose of idol worship, and visibly anybody listening to it has no idea that it has any connection to idol worship, and even the composer who's playing it is not doing it, or whoever it is who's playing it is not doing it for the purpose of idol worship, it's nishtakach, has no tangible connection to Avodah Zarah, to idols. So that's probably why they said it's okay. I didn't know this, so it's possible. Everything, all classical music?
And not all of it, but a good amount of it is.
Okay.
Like a lot of the people that wrote it aren't really fans of the Jews to begin with, so.
So back to Avram Fried.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go, that's it. Yeah. Ches, the eighth halacha. Hareya bate v'dezara b'yeshuvan, one who sees houses of idol worship as they're still standing, Eimer, one should say, Beis Game Yisach Hashem, that Hashem will uproot the house of the Hari. Chabanon, once they're destroyed, Eimer Kiel Nekamis Hashem, Kan Nekamis Ifia. But Almighty vengeance, Hashem will take vengeance in these places. Okay. Tess, this is an interesting halacha. Yoshav lekaitz beraglei, if somebody got something stuck on their foot, whatever it is, they're walking in the street, and something got stuck onto their shoe and they want to take it off. And his or his money fell on the floor, and it was in front of an idol or a house of idol worship. What can you do? Can you just pick it up? It's interesting because what happens if you're going to bend down to pick it up? What does it look like? Yeah, exactly. It looks like you are bowing down, chas v'shalom, God forbid, to Avodah Zarah. So lo yashech lahasir sakei detail esamois. One should not bend down to take whatever got stuck to a foot or to take the monies, because it looks like you're bowing down to this place. Even if nobody sees, nevertheless, one should not do so. So what you can do, you can sit down, or you turn around. You should just turn around, turn your back towards the place, and then you can take it.
And can you repeat the last halacha, please?
Sure. So you're walking in the street, right? And something got stuck to your shoe, or you dropped your wallet, right? So in front of you, there's a house of idol worship. So you shouldn't bow down to get your stuff because it looks like you're bowing down to the house of idol worship, right? Oh, so what do you do? So you can either sit down, so you're not doing an action of bowing down. No, like a squat down. Or what you do, you turn your back, you turn around 180 degrees, your back is facing that place, and then you pick it up. Yeah, so that's more of a practical halacha. Yud, halacha number 10. Yesh misha emer, there are those authorities that maintain also lahalves that it's not allowed to give a loan, to lend money l'tzarech binyan Avodah Zarah for the purpose of a building of idol worship, or right, you can't give a loan to build a house of idol worship or for the purpose of adorning the idol or anything for the purpose of the idol. For sure, you're not allowed to sell them things which are used for it. And one who holds back you will have success. Also, one should not bind books which are connected to idol worship. The exception to this is their law books. They're books of law. So you're not allowed to steal, you're not allowed to do this, so on and so forth. That's not a problem for a Jewish person to bind, even though laws, Sifrei Halacha Shalom. But if you're afraid by you not doing so, this is going to cause hatred, which could be dangerous. Then whatever you're able to evade to get yourself out of, you should. Yud Aleph, Halacha number 11. A place where people who serve Avodah Zarah, a special place where they gather around and they say this is where their sins, so to speak, get forgiven. One should not do business in such a place. Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
In Jerusalem, there is a lot of places not next to the quarter also. You cannot cross them.
So if you stay 4 or 6 feet away, it's okay. If you stay 6 feet away, it's okay. You're allowed to pass through that place as long as you don't go into the actual.
But this place that you're saying, like the street, like so,
It's like over there.
Yeah.
it's like both ways. Like we have like sort of like here and like the other side. Like it's like a shuk, but
Yes, it's better not to. Yeah, it's better to take a different route. Yeah. Yep, that's what it says.
Are we allowed to cross in the street?
Yeah, the answer is you are, because ultimately the problem is to stand 6 feet to the building itself.
And it's.
But here it's much more than 6 feet. So as long as you have,
Can we stand that?
what do you mean?
If someone say hi and you stand.
Oh, yeah, you could. Yeah, you could. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Can we look at it?
Oh, the answer is one should not look at it. We learned in Halacha Zayin, Halacha 7, that one should not gaze upon such a place. Very good questions. It said, I heard from a few people.
If like someone takes pictures of that, I didn't like take pictures, but am I allowed to like look at them
It's
and?
better not. Yeah, it's better to avoid. Yes, so it's better not. It's better to avoid it. If you see it, you just look away, but it's better not to specifically look at them. There's a saying that somebody said, how do you know you're learning something good? If the commentaries on that thing address your question.
What?
How do you know that when you're learning that you're succeeding or that you're on the right path? It's when the commentaries ask your question. So, Baruch Hashem, it's a good sign. Okay, it's Hashem, and we'll continue next week.